which means if I could respectfully ask all of the speakers that are left, the four that we have here, if you could kindly adhere to a 20-minute time slot. That means that we can get you all away pretty much on time this afternoon. I am going to exercise Chairman's prerogative and bring the session to a close if it starts to stray over the 20 minutes. What we have agreed is to enable that to happen, we will take questions at the end of each presentation, please. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to invite Helga Onsrud to the floor. The presentation it does have a slight typo in the programme. It should actually read Sewer Architecture, a gateway to managing IT solutions for land administration. So thank you very much. Helga, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a more technical paper which do not relate that much to the main topic of the session. That's because it's moved because I couldn't come here. I couldn't stay till tomorrow. Anyhow, it's a good story because it highlights what Gavin referred to as the main obstacle to dealing with informal settlements. That's political will. And this story shows when the political will is there, you can do marvelous things in a short time. So this presentation is just as much about political will as it is about the technical solution. It is about Armenia, and the reason why I'm talking about Armenia is that there is a Norwegian-funded aid program for former socialist states in Europe, and we have been able to help Armenia with putting in place a new IT system for land registration. Armenia is a landlocked country between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, mountainous country of 38,000 square kilometers with a population of slightly above 3 million. The starting point for the reform is that the privatization of land after the communist time was completed a few years ago. They have an integrated registration system in place, meaning that the technical part, the technical cadastre, and the legal information is contained in one system, one law, one organization. However, the activities were operated in almost 15 local offices, doing the registration work and also conducting the surveys, using several stand-alone different IT systems, not well coordinated, copying data by sending CDs to the central database. So it was a delay and not always complete and inconsistent from time to time. Also using paper books in parallel, not really trusting the various IT solutions. It was a mandatory use of notaries. It was also a mandatory use of surveys to have a survey whenever you transact. Not only when you change a boundary, but whenever you transact, there should be a survey. Widespread discontent among the public about the services from the registration offices. Slow services, bureaucratic, limited access to information, and quite a lot of corruption. The clients could talk directly to the registrar. And finally, the election, the general election coming up in 2012. Encouraging the head of the agency, which is also a senior political person in the cabinet, to do something with the situation and do it very rapidly. So that could be an argument in the campaign before the general election. That meant that something had to be done within a few months. To improve services, to simplify registration, to remove and reduce the bureaucratic procedures, to reduce corruption, improve access to information, implementing modern technology, and doing that by importing the best practices from other countries. In the spring of 2011, 3 men, he sent out 3 scouts to find the best solutions in the world. They went to Georgia, they went to the Netherlands, and they went to Lithuania. Came back, and all the recommendations were approved, and the process of modernizing the registration system were set in motion very quickly. We were there already with a project to renew the IT system, and were told that we had to concentrate on the most critical issues and make them operational by the end of the year. So the company who won the contract, it was a joint venture between the Croatian company and an Armenian software company. They were given no more than 8 months to put in place the vital components supporting the reform to the registration. In parallel with that, they decided to remove the mandatory use of notaries. They introduced simple standard forms for transactions. They stopped surveying properties with transactions unless there was a change to the boundaries. They allowed, or they terminated the requirement that you could not transact properties with non-formalized buildings. They decided to separate so-called front offices dealing with the public from the people who actually made the data entry to the register. So the people could not talk with them who were in position to enter on data, and thereby removing most of the possibilities for corruption. And also to put in place various solutions to improve the possibility for the public to monitor the progress of their case. In fact, I also decided that cases should be handled within 4 days. So it was quite a massive and a very ambitious program to put in place during a very short time. And the reform heavily depending on an IT system. Not all elements of the reform depended on that, but significant and critical parts of the reform depended on putting in place a modern IT solution, which, for one, could facilitate the separation of the front offices from the registration. People could go to the same amount of front offices in their locality, deliver their documents, and receive certificates, but the handling of those were not done at the registration at those front offices. So they needed a system where they could scan the document, send them electronically to a centralized registration office, where they could have a larger staff, they could have the more skilled staff, and separated from direct contact with the clients. At the same time, ensure unique handling of cases, lower the costs, especially concerning the IT part, and support rapid improvements to the services to the land market. Concerning the IT part, that is the other good story, that there are no technology on the market to do these things much more rapidly and much easier and at much lower costs than before. I think Gavin there has a lot of stories about big IT projects contained in the World Bank package, which have failed or has experienced very severe problems. So, based on these new technologies, a new IT system was actually developed very quickly. Centralized databases with web services, and in fact, they do not require very strong telecommunication networks. As long as you are not downloading massive amounts of part, just retrieving information for a single property and entering data for a single property, you live very well with the limited capacity to the telecommunication network. Service-oriented architecture, where you could build small modules or different modules where you link together using web services. made it much more easy to make an IT system quickly and with much better control, and largely using components you could buy off the shelf, and which you also could put in place one by one, which was done, and which you can replace one by one. Later on, if there is you need some improvements to one part of the system, you can easily replace that module. I'm coming back to what the modules are. And finally, there is a whole lot of open source software available for free. Licensing costs are killing many poor governments, and in this case they were able to use free software for all modules, except for the basic storage where they still have an Oracle license. But for all the application modules, they were able to use free open software without any license cost to it. So it was decided to divide the solution in 5 independent modules. A workflow system to guide the whole process from people coming with their documents to the final storage of a case in the electronic archive. Steering all the processes, calculating the fees when that is necessary, ensuring that the processes are following a certain procedure and in accordance with the law. There's a document management module which support the scanning of documents and the storage of documents and the distribution of copies of the documents to those who are doing the registration. A texture model, which was the most complicated part, because you would like a texture model to build quite a lot of controls, production of various certificates, lists, etc. That had to be developed largely from scratch, but still using not using licensed software. A map module for the cadastre map, and finally a portal for the interaction with the users, to be used for submitting documents and for retrieving data and also to distributing various types of certificates and data. Meeting the target of having something in place by the end of 2011, the work was concentrated on the modules, the black, which are indicated with the black here, and we postponed the implementation of the map module, which for various reasons has taken longer time and it's not becoming operational before the end of this year, but they were able to live with a separate node solution during 2012. These modules were largely put in place into use one by one, and then linked together. And things like, and they also put in place solutions for submitting documents electronically with electronic signature and remote payment. And I heard the other day that this solution is already in use by notaries and surveyors. Not that many documents, 40 per day, are submitted electronically. And using remote payment by credit card if you like. Interestingly, these small packages to support electronic signature and remote payment, they are general modules which you can buy on the market. I think the supplier implemented it during a couple of weeks. And parallel with this, they also renewed the offices. You wouldn't believe how it looked a year ago going into a cadastre office in Armenia, but during a very short time they renewed the offices. It's looking like the most modern bank. You come to the office, it looks like this. The first thing you do is to go to a terminal to indicate what kind of case you want to register. You get a fee, information about the fee, you get a queue number. Here is a terminal where you get the queue number, and you can also do the payment there. There is an automatic ticket machine there, so you can do the payment on the spot. And then you sit down and watch when it's your turn. This is deliberately done that you are not able yourself to select the clerk you will deal with. That has also to do with removing most possibilities for corruption. Then you just watch the screen, your number is coming up like in a bank, and you deliver your documents. You see there, watching that the critical information is entered by the clerk while you're standing at the desk, so you get the right daybook number, the right priority. Of course, she has access to your payment file, so she can see that you have already paid the fee. If you need legal assistance, because they removed the mandatory use of notaries, they have employed a number of legal experts working at the cadastre office. So you make an appointment and you can sit down, and they will help you with bringing the document in order and verifying that you are the right persons. It's been becoming a very popular and a very cheap service. Then the documents are scanned, and finally the documents are electronically transmitted to the registration office, where there are a number of people I have doing the entry, checking all the data. They receive the electronic document on the screen, and they do the registration based on the information, electronic information, both the updating of the textual information and the map. So finally, these new IT technologies, service-oriented architecture, web services, open source software, offers a whole range of radically new and improved possibilities for making IT systems for cadastre at much lower prices, and you can build them piece by piece, put them into use step by step, much more easy to control the development than we have experienced with these very big integrated systems before. Certainly at much lower costs. The contract price was exactly $1 million US. With no overrun. We used quite a lot of money up front to specify the system. Actually 30% of the cost have been used to specify the system and the functionality of it and the web services in detail, and also to employ a controller who has been coming to Armenia every month to sit down with the client and the supplier to verify that the development is in accordance with the specifications. That was very useful. But maybe it would never work unless it was a joint venture with an Armenian company. Next time I hope we could do it only with the local company, because making these kind of systems without a very, very strong participation of a local company, I would say, is almost impossible. It is a language issue here, which is extremely important. It's an issue of knowing the situation and being close to the client. Being able to go there every day and work with them on a daily basis is crucial to have success in these kind of developments. And finally, it would never work without political will. This nice picture, sorry for that, it was a picture there which I intended to show you, but last week they actually received an award for having made the best business-oriented service in that part of the world. Thank you.
We have time for any quick questions, if there are any. Elsha, please, in the front. Thank you.
Helga, thank you very much for your fruitful, very interesting presentation. As to me, as a representative of Azerbaijan who has no ties with Armenia, of course, but I'm interested in these issues. And my question is there any interoperability between the cadastre system and the other registers which are existing in Armenia for the time being? I mean, due to the IT system, let's say. Thank you.
That has not been made for this system yet. It would be very nice to have electronic exchange of data with other registers, tax, population registers, and so on. That has not been a part of this project, but I think it's the whole architecture that you can, it will be very easy to make additional web services to communicate with other systems.
Okay, just one more final question, please.
There is quite a lot of data transfer, of course, necessary between the cadastral offices and the central units. Do they use normal internet connection, or what about data security, or do they have their own intranet? Because this could be an issue of concern here in this system, I would say.
First of all, in terms of capacity, they were able to use the regular. It's not built any special telecommunication infrastructure for the project. Concerning the security, I must just say I don't know what is. It's not my specialty. But it is worth to notice that even on a regular daily basis, the flow of data is not very big. You do not demand very strong telecommunication line, unless you want to download massive amount of, for example, download water photos for an whole area. But that you do not need that for the daily operation of a cadastre.
Okay, thank you very much, Helga. Interesting presentation. Thank you very much, Helga Ondred. I would like to invite Mimis Vogiatis to come to the floor, please. Mimis is going to talk about informal settlements within the forest areas of Greece.
Okay, hi everybody. This presentation has to do with informal.
Can you closer?
Okay, close to the microphone. You mean that?
Can you raise it? Okay.
As in many other places of the world, we have informal settlements, you may know. We have informal settlements in Greece too. There are many types of and forms of informal settlements. Well, in this presentation, we'll discuss about informal settlements, especially in forest lands, in forest lands in Greece. The most common form of informal settlements in forest areas is that settlements that have been constructed for residential use of a land that doesn't have clear property rights or ownership. Lands for which the Greek state, has never activated its property rights. So people may have a permit to construct a building in these lands. They have a license, but actually the land ownership has not been clarified. Other informal settlements forms exist throughout the country, but they don't constitute a compact settlement in terms of an area and special origin. They are distributed across lands, either in agricultural lands or forest lands. We're talking about expansion of existing industrial units, expansion of livestock units, and so on. Well, now in Greece we are in the fourth generation of informal settlements, and we believe that this generation is more luxurious than ever. But why people, since they have a permit, why they construct residential housing in forest lands? Well, actually, the main motive is their desire to get a better life of living. They want to live far away from dense, populated, and polluted existing urban areas. All the other terms, as you see, are just the means to construct their houses on forest lands. We don't have cadastre. We don't have forest lands registry. We have multiple services, land services and departments that dealing with land transactions. So it's easy to get through. We have good-willing servants and politicians who has the main role of this because they are reluctant and they accept all these informal settlements. I'm showing you some snapshots of areas that have been developed over the years, since 1945. This is St. Stephanos in northern Attica. As you see, the land is, there are three types of land uses and land cover: forested, agricultural areas, and some small snapshots of buildings for housing, old villages. This is how it's today. It's fully developed, either for industrial, there's an industrial zone on the left, and the largest part is used for housing on forest lands. Another area is Anthusa. Anthusa is in Attica too. We can't discriminate or can't see any form of land use, either residential or whatever. This is the situation today. Let's have a look at the institutional framework regarding protections of forests and forest lands, which are strongly protected by our Constitution and a series of laws starting from 1969. Well, you see the Article 117, I'm going to point out this. This is the key article because it has special provisions that says that lands used to be forests is still forests, considered to be forests. And will never change, the status or character cannot be changed. This creates property rights for the state. So wherever we have forest lands today, or in the past, from the time Greece was independent, the state claims or can activate its property rights and ownership on these lands. About the areas of forest and forest lands in Greece, we have a source back in 1992, the National Forest Inventory. 6.5 million hectares are considered to be forests. Small percent part of this, only almost 200,000 are privately owned. The rest are owned by municipalities and monasteries. And the rest are administered and managed by the Forest Service and considered to be state lands. What about ownership and property rights of forest lands? The state never retains its property rights on these forest and forest lands, but it never has activated. So perhaps citizens may have a permit or a land certificate from the local forest service that the land is non-forest, but it doesn't examine its property rights, state property rights. So people, citizens, in most cases, they get this permit and undergo the costs to build houses and whatever other constructions, but actually they don't have they may have a title, but actually depends on the state if it submits the claim for its property on these lands. And this was done not in a consistent way throughout the country, but depends on the local public agencies, which usually they used to favor the land circumstantial and issue certificates circumstantially for distributed parts plants throughout the country, and they don't face it in a consistent way. Now, we have cadastre in the last 10 years in some percent of the country, and we're going completed throughout the country at the national level, and in the next few years until 2020. In cadastre, we launched an initiative to deal with all these problems on forest lands, which is actually forest map development. Actually, cadastral, known as cadastral forest mapping, deals with forest lands and forest delineations and identify their status, either it's forest or non-forest. We used recent orthophotos, aerial photography, and historical one, the 1945, we have for the whole country. And we examine and analyze different other types of data, such as issues, deeds, certificates issued by the local forest services, has to do with the land status, forest or non-forest, historical cadastral diagrams, historical cadastral maps, and court decisions that have been issued all over the years. So we aim, with the forest map, we aim to assess and delineate accurately the forest and forest lands, and to promote state property rights through the cadastral process. This is an extract of forest map. The point is that forest map depicts lands and defines lands that are ruled by forest law. The first forest map suspension becomes a reality ever for the first time in Greece in 2011. Methodologio has an important role of this, and apply on all the provisions of recent law regarding authorized forest mapping issued in 2010, where this law requires wide public notifications, either in the office that should have been established to serve the citizens, to make their claims, or by internet. If anybody wants to make a claim against the forest map content, he should bring geographic coordinates of the area of his interest, facts that document his property rights on the land, and pay a special fee. To implement all these provisions of the law, Methodologio made explicit web GIS-based application that help people to make their claims via internet. And we provide geospatial tools to make this easier for everybody and user-friendly. Now, also in these areas, we have launched cadastral program. Cadastre needs the whole information, all parts of the land, so to get a conclusion about the ownership and property rights. Since forest lands it's a large part of the country and of local areas, so it needs these information to come through the forest map suspension process I described previously. Citizens that claim lands in forest lands or forests, they should document their property rights and bring titles, whatever evidence throughout the years. If they don't have these documents, so the state is qualified to have the ownership, to be the landowner through cadastral process. Of course, we have private forests, as I said before, and there are special provision that recognize private forests. Some of these are those we have, but private forests are recognized by the state through many decisions. Private forests through decisions made by court, through ministerial decisions, local government decisions. Lands that are not characterized as not non-forest in historic cadastral maps starting from 1976, or lands that have been allocated and ceded to citizens for agricultural development through land distribution policy. We focus in a historical pilot study area here in north and northeastern Attica, in 2 municipalities, where we have both partly authorized forest maps for some part of the area. We have a cadastral development and declaration of the state for forest and forest lands. And here is some preliminary results we made after I analyze all this kind of data. So if you see the total area declared by the state as forest and forest lands, plus the area that is designated as forest and forest lands through the authorized forest maps, it's about 91% in Penteli and 50% in Marathon, 2 municipalities. And the parcels affected by this declaration is 46% in Penteli and 24% Marathon. It's too high. It's too high because these areas in the past, in 1945, was mostly forest and forest lands. Some other details about parcel area affected. You see the number of parcels that are affected by the state declaration. Well, areas that are affected by 1 meter means that 37 polygons, 37 parcel has affected, 1% of these parcels have been affected by state declaration. And 774 parcels in Penteli have affected, 50% of these parcels have been affected by state declarations. While the numbers, the small numbers, I can consider it should be a geometric error of the state declarations. So we don't have to take it into account. But the others, at least in the other categories, we have a real problem with forest declaration, the state declaration of forest lands. Out of the whole number of parcels we have in these 2 municipalities, we have only 380 in Penteli parcels with buildings and 600 parcels with buildings in Marathon. Out of them, most of them are for residential use, as I said at the very beginning, in both cases. Of course, we have half of them, or depends on the area, are multi-ownership for residential use, and the size of parcels or the number of parcels for commercial use is very low. And here are some statistics we made about the buildings we have there for judicial use and how many floors they have. So it's focused on, we have 1 or 2 floors in most cases. And now, these were the statistics for the whole municipality area. And now let's see 2 cases of informal settlements inside these municipalities. One is one called Avra, it's located at Marathon. Well, this was land use and land cover in Avra in 1945. As you see, all of it was forest or forest land. Now we have, you'll see the statistics later on, we have too many parcels. It has been built, all of it for residential use. Here with the green color, you see the state declaration for forest lands through cadastral process. And the rest of it, the largest part, which is hatched, is forest lands as have been authorized by forest map, which have been authorized some months previously. This is the next case, the second case, which refers to Pedeli settlement. And this is the current situation. There are 2 small settlements over the Pedeli mountain where the ancient Athenians extracted the marbles to make their Acropolis and the rest of monuments in ancient Athens. This was the situation in 1845. There are a couple of buildings on the lower, in the center of the lower red line. All the other was forest. Now we have an umbrella, make an overlay with the cadastral parcels we have on these settlements. This is the state declaration on lands considered to be forest or forest lands. And this is both the lands declared with by the state as forest and the forest map, authorized forest map content. Actually, the total area affected by by forest lands are 64% here in Avra and 77% in Pedeli. And the parcels are almost 100%, 96% both cases. As you see, all these settlements are used just for residential use 100%. And some statistics about the area and the number of parcels are affected by this state declaration. Well, to accelerate cadastral development and cadastral forest mapping, we need authorized urban and settlements boundaries. It's weird, it's strange that in the 21st century we don't have these data special and authorized. And the point is that these settlements, we can't go back to make forest again. They are concrete made. It's not logic. So a fee, a special fee for those owners inside these informal settlements would be a logical solution. The point is that we have to prevent the expansion of formal settlements out of these areas throughout the country. Another solution would be that the state, because now through cadastral process, the state favors or claims lands inside authorized urban areas. And this has to be stopped. There is no mean of that, since they have been accepted and authorized as urban areas. We can't move these people for illegal enlarging of the land. So we have to find a logic or economic solution to my point of view. In the law number 3889 in 2010, has a special provision for this for informal settlements. This is Article 24, and it provides a special procedure to deal with informal settlements in forest mapping process. So all these settlements have been excluded. We have to identify forest lands, existing current forest lands, to protect them, and find a solution for the rest that have been already constructed. We need also a special database for all these data regarding settlements and urban areas. Methodology has the potential to develop this database, to update and maintain this update and serve both citizens, both public and private sector. Unfortunately, we don't have a consistent database throughout the country in digital and spatial format. And I guess the bottom line is that we have, by any means, to accelerate cadastral development and forest mapping as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Very briefly, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Boggiani?
I'd love to clarify one issue. Maybe I missed something. Maybe at the beginning of your presentation you said that people are allowed to construct buildings in the forest areas. It means that the forest areas are available to be privatized. In this case, what sort of forests cannot be privatized in Greece? Why I'm asking this question, because in Azerbaijan, according to our law on privatization, none of forest can be privatized. Thank you.
Okay. The same stands for our country. None of forest or any type of forest can be divided to make parcels and can be sold and can change.
But the people are allowed to construct something there.
Well, usually because this country was built and not in any informal way as the West European country or North America was built, right? Because we have refugees over the years. There is, I point out the reason for this. Over the years we have some different conditions, economic, social, and all these kinds. So perhaps in many cases the state can't prove that this land was forest because people, citizens have documents or you know, I can find the word, title or some kind of title. Most people have titles by urban planning offices. The point is, the Forest Service either was never asked what kind of land we have there, or never accepted. So the construction of these settlements were passed by the Forest Service or the Ministry of Agriculture all of these years.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, we don't have any time. I said one question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Mr. Bogdias is around if anybody wants to follow up with him after the session is over. Could I call the next speaker to the lectern, please? Mr. Paitsev. Mr. Paitsev will talk about unauthorized occupation of land areas in sustainable land administration system of Uzbekistan. I think he intends to make a short introduction in his own language, and then the rest of the presentation will continue in English. Thank you, Mr. Paitsev.
Уважаемые дамы и господа, коллеги, уважаемый секретариат.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear members of the Secretariat.
У меня есть предложение. Мое выступление написано на русском языке.
I have a proposal. My speech was written in Russian.
У него есть моего текста на английском языке.
But it has been translated into English.
Чтобы ваше время не отнимать.
In order to save your
Если
time,
разрешите, конечно.
if you
Она
allow me,
прочитает, а я
well, it
готов
will be read
на ответ,
in
если есть вопрос.
English, and I'll be ready to address your questions.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
The land relations in the Republic of Uzbekistan are regulated by the land legislation in order to establish rational use and protection of the lands, maintenance, reproduction and raising the fertility of soils, maintenance and amelioration of natural environment, creation of the conditions for equal development of all forms of administration, protection of the rights of legal and physical persons on the land plots, as well as strengthening the rule of law in this domain. The land legislation includes the Land Code of the Republic of Uzbekistan and other legislative acts regulating the land relations. The land relations in the Republic of Karakalpakstan are also regulated by the legislation of the Republic of Karakalpakstan. According to the Constitution and the Land Code in the Republic of Uzbekistan, the land is state property. It is national wealth. It is subject to rational use and is protected by the state and cannot be bought or sold, given or deposited except the cases established by legislative acts. According to the valid land legislation, the land plots are given to legal and physical persons in the established order for certain use under established conditions, and the right of permanent ownership, permanent use, temporary use, lease and property rights. The right of ownership of legal and physical persons for land plots has an insignificant specific weight and is created in order established by the legislation in cases during privatization of objects of commerce and services together with the land plots they are located at. During the sale to diplomatic missions and international organizations equal to them, accredited in the Republic of Uzbekistan, of buildings or parts of buildings used as the premises of the missions, including the head of the mission's residence, together with the land plots where they are located on, as well as land plots for constructing these missions' buildings. During the sale of residential premises, together with the land plots they are situated on, to foreign legal and physical persons, employees of the diplomatic corps, the representatives of the press accredited in the Republic of Uzbekistan, the employees of the permanent missions of the firms, companies, and international organizations, persons working on a permanent basis at the enterprises with foreign investments, as well as to persons living permanently in the Republic and having a residence permit. According to the Land Code of the Republic of Uzbekistan, Articles 83-85, and the thesis on state control of the use and the protection of lands approved by the decision of the Council of Ministers as of February the 16th of 2005, the state control of the use and the protection of lands is carried out on the whole territory of the Republic of Uzbekistan. The main task of the state control of the land use and protection is to establish that legal and physical persons, the state authorities, the local authorities fulfill the requirements of the land legislation. The state control of the land use and protection is carried out by the local authorities as well as specially authorized state authorities. Specially authorized state authorities for the control of the land use and protection are the State Committee of the Republic of Uzbekistan on Land Resources, Geodesy, Cartography, and the State Cadastre. The State Committee of the Republic of Uzbekistan on Environmental Protection. The State Cadastre carries out state control on land use and protection concerning matters which are not included in the competence of the State Committee of the Republic of Uzbekistan on Environmental Protection. The state control on land use and protection is carried out by the executives of the State Cadastre, the directions on land resources and State Cadastre of the Republic of Karakalpakstan, regions and the city of Tashkent, the departments on land resources and State Cadastre of the neighborhoods of the cities. The state authorities which carry out state control on land use and protection within the framework of their competence have the right to carry out in the established order surveys of the rational land use and protection, to give obligatory for execution by legal and physical persons orders on fixing the land legislation's violations, as well as taking measures which have to do with rational use and protection of the land. To sue in the established order the guilty executives and the citizens, to bring the guilty executives and the citizens to administrative responsibility, to sue for restitution of the damage caused by the law legislation violation, to send recommendations to the respective enterprises, services, organizations, and materials to law enforcement authorities for making answerable the persons guilty of land legislation violation, to make recommendations to local state authorities about full or partial repossession of land plots in cases foreseen by land legislation. The land penal and administrative Code of the Republic of Uzbekistan has introduced liability in cases of land legislation violations. The liability, Article 90 of Land Code, Article 229 1-1 of Penal Code, Article 60 of Administrative Code, is also borne by individuals responsible for unauthorized occupation of land. Squattering. Squattering is defined as an unauthorized occupation of land or the exploitation of land without the registration of documentation enabling the right of ownership, and in special cases the conduction of economic activity without the relevant documentation. According to Article 91 of the Land Code of the Republic of Uzbekistan, the occupied in an unauthorized way land must be returned to the rightful ownership without any compensation of the expenses borne during the period of illegal exploitation following the decision of the regional hakim or the court's verdict. The delivery of the land in a ready-to-use condition, including the removal of any premises, is performed by and all the relevant expenses borne by the party who occupied the land without authorization. During the period 2000 2012, when recording of inventory occurred. On numerous occasions, cases of unauthorized occupation of land in several regions were identified with no proper documentation confirming the ownership right to be found. A significant number of similar cases of squattering occurred during the process of reforms in the agricultural sector after the declaration of sovereignty of the country as a consequence of the law. The abolishment of sovkhoz and kolkhoz, the evolution of kolkhoz and into agricultural cooperatives, shirhats, the liquidation of shirhats and the establishment of farms by means of redistribution of land with the simultaneous allocation of land of special importance, such as settlements, irrigation, canals, collectors, roads, communications, and other, to the authority of the corresponding regional administrations. Aiming at the resolution of cases of unauthorized occupation in compliance with the laws of the Republic of Uzbekistan, as well as for the minimization of probability of repetition of squattering practices in the future, it is necessary from our point of view to undertake the following actions and measures. Land registration concerning the transfer of lands of special destination to the relevant authorities according to the projects of reallocation of lands of agricultural cooperatives in the established order. The regulation in accordance with the law of cases of unauthorized occupation and the issuance of the corresponding documentation. Development and improvement of the legal basis defining issues of land ownership. The enhancement of the status of land allocation within the system of sustainable administration of land resources of the country. The improvement of the state control over the use of land and its protection. Introduction of changes, additions to legislative acts defining the state control over the use and protection of the land, mentioning, among other things, the allocation of liability to legal entities, as well the increase of penalties for violation of the relevant laws. The enhancement of the level of state guarantees for physical and legal entities in cases of land ownership. A systematic improvement of skills and professional qualifications, both technologically and legally wise, of specialists employed in the sector of sustainable administration of land resources. Material, technical, and organizational enhancement of the services of Geocadastre, state cadastre, on a regional level, the improvement of the legal awareness of the population, focusing on land legislation, development of private sector, cadastral type of works, estimations provision, and other in the sphere of sustainable administration of land resources and the corresponding regulation of relationships with the main state authorities in this segment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor for Mr. Peitzer?
Thank you very much. It is, it was a very interesting presentation. and some new experience for me. So, in Russian, I think, I have a proposal. In Russian, the title of the presentation is quite normal, but in English, is it possible to make some slight amendments, because unauthorized occupation, otherwise it would mean that there might be authorized occupation also. This is my opinion. Thank you. Я могу по-русски прозвучить, значит, на русском языке все нормально, только на английском языке при переводе пошел unauthorized occupation, то есть выходит, что нелегальная оккупация. Выходит, что есть еще и легальная оккупация.
Перевод сделали здесь.
Спасибо.
Thank you, Elsha. Are there any more questions for Mr. Pautzer? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pautzer, and your translator. Thank you. Very interesting. Our final speaker in this session is Otmar Schuster. Please, if I could invite Mr. Schuster to the lectern, the floor is yours. Mr. Schuster is going to talk about property markets and their frame conditions.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to hear something about Uzbekistan, because I was several times, for nearly 10 years there, and I've seen now there is also some progress. So, property markets and their frame conditions. You see here on the left side a small sign, Zenit. It's a center of innovation and technique. 50 people, PPP belongs partly to the government, partly to the banks, and partly to a private association. And I'm the president of it, and GeoHouse, that is my firm. What I was trying here to find a general approach to this topic, and I started here with Adam Smith. And Adam Smith has written The Wealth of Nations, and he thought he has detected fundamental natural laws. But nowadays we know it better. It is a question of regulation, this market. But on the other hand, what is clear, what he detected, that is that the new way of production, the new way of handling and selling gave more wealth, and this wealth came into houses and real estate, and there started a secondary market with real estate. And the added value of real estate takes place decentralized but dual, by the work of the plot, B by the characteristics of the subject, rent, site, minerals, resources, and so on. Sorry. At least nowadays, the internationalization in real estate started with the financial products and the possibility which the laws in the different countries gave us, and the regulation gave us. Of course, such a market needs reliable and regulative body and a mechanism for avoiding undesirable development. It is clear that private economy, which is in the mid of this market, follows business profit opportunities. And private economy rinses against lawful protection dams. It looks for the holes and looks for possibilities which are better. So it has to be controlled and regulated. Private business follows the professions. And the backbone of the market is a technical and legal regulation system based on agreements between the market participants. Nowadays, we know that economic crisis can be controlled, at least subdued, by several measures. Before that, even Schumpeter or Hayek, they thought that these disasters which we have seen in the 19th and 20th century for the economy, that they were natural disasters, they came up and we couldn't hinder it. But, of course, nowadays we know some more how to hinder it. One of the measures is transparency. The other one, subjection of certain private contracts under public law. We have talked the whole day about it. Public planning, building regulations, strict building regulation, ecology and so on. Then outline the procedures for sales and purchases by legal regulations. Taxation, of course, of transactions, and sometimes also delay of taxes against economic laws. I saw once in Amman that one parcel has been sold 4 times in one day with a double price at the end. Waiver of examining the history of the plot for the transaction. Instead of that, public guarantee of the registered owner to be the legal one, a basic regulation. Guarantee of the compensation in case of public intervention, which is necessary that people trust in the state. Yeah, what is the market asset? Plot and house, both, or only plot and house? You know, a long discussion over a long time. And even now in many countries still it differs. And the question is, what is the accrual in the register and in the cadastre? Where is the right to be located and how is the process of localization performed? All these questions define more or less the market asset which we are dealing with. And of course the question how were the boundaries being fixed in the past, before the system were made, and does exist a parcel numbering system and a documentation with historical sketches to find the lawful boundaries of the rights. Actual questions which we discussed also the whole day. I will not, because of the time, not go deeper into detail. But of course it's necessary to consider the informal regulations, and we have in all countries informal regulations, even in the most modern states where I've seen that they use partly old dimensions or that they use old forms for renting, and even if it's too expensive to go to the register for example to lend a piece of land, then they do it by hand for the very old way of regulation. So the public system has to be so cheap and has to be so attractive, and the government has to look for that there is a gradual slope to leave these old things and go into the system. As it seems to be now done in Armenia here. It was quite interesting. Yeah. Legal definition of that, what we call parcel, the commercially tradable product. It is necessary to know that the state in this process is the guarantor of sales and purchase procedure, not the guarantor of the sale or the purchase itself, but the procedure itself can be followed afterwards. And of course, digital definitions of the parcel are state-of-the-art today, but others still exist, and they have also the right to exist. It is not a question of having digital information to have a good cadastre or a good register. Of course, digital description of the parcel can be like here. You see the many numbers, which is not too complicated for you as mostly surveyors here. Yeah, one important thing what I wanted to mention is self-governance brings relevance to the citizen. If it is possible, and if in those countries where we have a system which is partly paid by the user himself, by fees, or for example, not for the maintenance and for the actual change, or when we have regulations which bring people together, for example, the farmers, and they are responsible for the groundwater. If you have such mutual such regulations which bring the people together, the owners together. They are isles of mutual trust, and it is a very good situation. So I think what I have seen was also a very positive thing. Yeah, we have in many countries private law and public law, and the cut between both has to be said. It is different in all countries. It cannot be the same in the country history, but it is of course there, and it has to be seen that it is important. Competition between service organization moves mountains. Of course, I'm a private, and insofar as speaking about competition, but I have never seen a private comrade, or myself, who likes competition. Nobody likes competition, but the state has to organize the economy in forms of competition. And if he does so, then he must do it in the right way. If he has made competition between public organizations, then it is the wrong way, because this gives competition at the wrong place. And the people do not trust other anymore in the public authorities. But but it is necessary to organize areas of private competition. This is very necessary, and all regulations which somebody makes for the economy opens areas for competition. You must know that, and competition has to be controlled, and competition has also to let rooms for innovation. We have a lot of regulations in European countries, even like Germany. And I told today, for example, to one friend, when I started with color plans in 1990, it took me in the city of Duisburg 8 years until they accepted it. Why? Because the old regulations said only black and white. Or here I have a small, you see the pictures here for these are photos of demarcation. And it was a long fight with the regional government that they accepted in such sketches this small innovation. But for the future, and as somebody who comes from technique and innovation, we preach, of course, we have to have regulations which let open the progress and the innovation, so that the people who are in competition can also take this possibility. Yeah, market transparency is the best tool for the consumers, and the way how to make market transparency are very diverse. Many countries they go other ways. Here in Germany we have these maps with zones for standard ground values, and every user can see it in the internet. On the right side, you see the old one up to 2010, and then on the left side, the new one, and you see there that even the market prices descend, which says that now, not so hard like in Greece, but a little bit, we are going downwards or backwards. Yeah, redistribution, this is a very important and suitable tool for the development, and everybody should, in the government, should study it, the possibilities with it. It was for a long time, after the war, a very important development tool in Western Europe. It was lawful, and it was generally accepted by both, by the public and the privates, because everybody saw it was something good what came. But it functioned only as long as the market values went up. And that very moment when they went down in the 90s, began to went down, it was becoming very critical, and it was not easy to make these redistributions, reallocations, or whatever, or land consolidations, because nothing has to be given to the people. They all accept if they get more, but they do not accept if they get less. On the other hand, even in such times where we are now, if there is an unlawful situation and we can change it by such measures into a lawful situation, then this is a very good thing if we do it. Yeah, the whole system, how it functions, we have it seen impressively now today and the whole week, how it can be made. But it has some questions to be done here. For example, are the regulations inscrutable for the people? And sometimes we have situations, even in modern countries like ours, that we go too quickly to a legal coordinate system, and the legal coordinate system brings up that we come into the nature and the coordinate is here and the proper boundary point is there, 30 centimeters in between, or even only 10, but it is enough that people do not believe in the cadastre. So we cannot go too early in such a legal coordinate system that is damages only. Yeah, of course such a system needs the codes. We have spoken about the codes, and it's not only something with surveying, it is something with the civil code, the land registry ordinance, the land utilization ordinance, the planning and building code, survey and cadastral law and professional law, and many regulations around which are responsible for which are used for land and property. Well, what we need in the inner circle is a legal definition of technical procedures and a public definition of neighborly convention to fix the border lawfully. And I was astonished when I saw in the old Soviet Union that for the land use they had also these two things. They have the acceptance of neighbors who accepted it, and they had also the boundary, and they had also coordinates already to the time. But the most important is how to find and how to repair mistakes. And so if anybody makes a system without the possibility of repairing and finding mistakes, it is nothing. It's worth nothing. It stops, it is back. And that is partly the system here in this country, but we have in other countries also areas where we have not defined correctly the possible defects, the possible mistakes, and not. And so we need a catalog of possible mistakes, and we need, of course, easy regulations to manage them. And easy regulations to manage them can only be that you have powerful people who are allowed to regulate and such mistakes. And if you have to go to all the institutions which are responsible and ask them again, then you are some years elder until the mistake is made correct. So no, that cannot be. That is so important. My profession as public appointed surveyor has one tool which is very good in this. We can state fact. State fact in a case that it is that the court can take it without any doubt. So he needs not to take somebody else if we stated a fact. And this is very important just for these finding mistakes and regulating mistakes, because it can only be based on facts. Yeah, I have here only shortly shown what is the difference here on the example of a bond. On the left is the German Pfandbrief. Pfandbrief, that's a bond, and you see the many circles. The many circles mean that it's the security by state guarantees and by the organization. Security rings. And on the right side, you see only two. That is, if you have only a private bond, a private organized bond, that shall mean if you have such a definition of property, if you have such a regulation body which fits together, then of course you have a higher security for the bank and for the user and the buyer of such a Pfandbrief. And what happened now in the crisis, it was just that what there happened. The Pfandbrief was much better than any other bonds in the world because of the system behind. And you can see it, and what here you can see what's the difference is. Of course, the difference between actual market value and actual mortgage value is the bigger, the less is the system. Here, a rough picture concerning the mortgage value and the market value, and the difference which you see in that what happens. And here, if something happens, if such a disaster happens, as we have seen here, you see if the blue line goes under the green line, then the bank can take more or less, not directly, but more or less the land. So we have three stages. We have the market value, which is going down strictly, and if it goes under the pledge on real estate, it is a dangerous situation. And this dangerous situation we have here in the country, but it happens in other places also. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Very clear presentation to end the day with. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Schuster? Okay, Roger, would you like to say something?
Thank you, and thank you all of the presentators for their excellent and interesting presentations. And I thought about, is there sort of a common insight in this? And I think at least for me, I would like to make a few comments about what I find common in this. And one thing is obvious, that we have very many different property rights systems. We define property rights in very different ways, in different regions, different countries, and we knew that before, but it becomes very obvious when you can see this displayed like this. And I think that's an important knowledge. We have also in this session and in the session before have examples of very different reasons for informal settlements. It's not one background these informal settlers have. They have very different backgrounds and different reasons, and we even from this interesting presentation of the Greek forestry, that one reason can be not out of necessity, but because you yourself would like to get a better environment, live in a better place, and you're not pressed to it, but you choose yourself. All this gives to me that there is not one answer on how to deal with informal settlements. It's of course extremely important to have the starting point in the local situation, the local conditions, the culture, and whatever, all these differences that we have examples of. I think in this last presentation that Mr. Schuster made, you had a slide where you talked about the basis in a system for regulation, as what we always can demand is that there is a recognized, I would say, state-guaranteed system of regulations, institutions, and that you have such a regulation system that starts from the local conditions and local culture, but such a system is formed and is upheld, because we have also seen that you can set a system, you can decide about the law, but then you must uphold it and really impose it. And also I would like to add one word that also from Mr. Schuster's presentation that I think is, my own opinion, is extremely important in in this, and that's transparency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olga. Before I hand out some gifts that I have for the speakers, Prissy has asked me to remind anybody who is intending to go to the dinner this evening at the seafood restaurant, if you would like to convene at 8 o'clock, please, in the reception of the hotel, and then you will walk to the restaurant, which I think is about 15 minutes away. Is that right, Prissy? Okay, so that's 8 o'clock in the reception area for anyone who's going to the dinner this evening. Thank you.